This is Inside WealthTech. I'm Blake Wood. Today we're live at Schwab Impact. With me I've got Franklin Sung, Growth Advisor at AppCrown. Franklin, thanks for joining us today.
Blake, always a pleasure. Grateful to be here.
So let's introduce the audience to AppCrown and what you all do. What's the elevator pitch?
Sure. So if you were to say what AppCrown does over the last 15 years, we've been integrating multiple portfolio systems, custodian systems, planning software systems, and normalizing that into Salesforce as a chassis, as a data platform to deliver true practice KPIs to help financial advisors make better decisions.
So the thing about the proliferation of technology and advisors buying more and more of it, the integration costs become pain points. How does AppCrown help advisors turn technology into a growth engine rather than a maintenance burden?
I would say from a value proposition, maybe time and tenure is a benefit. So we've invested over 15 years of capital investment to making the integrations low cost for the financial advisors. That's number one. Number two, growth-minded advisors, I would say the integrations has to actually move the needle for these financial advisors. Now, what does that mean? That means digital advisor scorecard. Can I manage my net new flows, my billable, non-billable NNA data points from the integration of, say, Tamarack data with the multiple custodians that exist out there? So that way, when you give that nugget of data to the financial advisor, it's not just a colorful dashboard, but it's actually going to move how they actually go about, whether it's acquiring another firm or growing across state lines into another state, opening up another office.
So you touched on it a little bit. There is a real pain point across the industry. We've got new technologies, but there's a cost of integration, there's data silos, there's legacy technology, there's general mindset of why do we integrate, how do we integrate, and what's the value of integration, whether it's an advisor firm or larger platforms, new technology. What's the real value in solving that data and workflow integration, and how do you measure that value at AppCrown and play that back to the firms that you work with?
Blake, that's a very insightful question that will always stand the test of time. If you remember years ago, 15 years ago at T3 with Greg Freeman talking about the silver bullet, and today in 2025, we're still talking about the integrations. So I would really categorize that integrations, in order for it to mean something, is actually to displace workflows. It's not integrating data or bettering workflows. It's actually that the integrations has to remove steps within a practice. Those workflows have to go away. And I say that to put together a very powerful integration means really to look at from how am I going to build this business? Am I going to be a national firm, multiple office, cross state lines, acquiring other firms? Then the question is, what is the data that's going to propel you from point A to point B? Or are you just following the latest panel that says you have to integrate for the sake of integration? So I think understanding why, working backwards from that will provide a much more thoughtful response of what are we integrating, why are we integrating, and then from a cost to value perspective, that all kind of will come to a head in merit.
And you're talking about large national firms, multi-states, multi-region. Those profiles are typically multi-custodian, right? So they want to work with different custodians as they maybe acquire new firms that work at custodian A, B, or C. How does AppCrown preserve that advisor choice, as you talked about, removing workflows and integrations, drive that, and help advisors be able to continue to do business wherever he or she wants to and gain that scale or keep the scale?
I would say most people, let's consider this as mythbusters, right? The myth is that an integration of multiple custodians and a portfolio systems, they're two different integrations. In our mindset, we do multi-custodial integrations alongside multi-portfolio integrations. So that way, when you combine the two, you're actually cherry picking the best of both worlds. When we look at Tamarack, provides one of the best custom reporting engines out there, bulk API reports that you can bring into the system. When you layer that in with a multi-custodial choice, whether you're Schwab, Fidelity, Pershing, and you can bring in demographic details to fluff up that household view within the CRM system, well, hey, that's a very holistic and integrated solution set. And I think that kind of true integration across multiple custodians, multiple portfolio systems, obviously Tamarack being one of the best ones out there, guys.
All right.
I think that kind of aspect and approach gives advisors choice to grow.
Let's talk about digital transformation. It's a phrase that honestly makes me cringe a little bit. Consultants use it all the time. To me, it's fluffy. It doesn't mean a lot, but there's a lot behind what that actually means. I'd love kind of your view on what does digital transformation mean for a firm, 30 to 50 advisors. What are you actually doing to help transform that firm?
Well, to your point, digital transformation is a very loosely held term. It's used by anyone and everyone. From where we sit at AppCrown, digital transformation really means how do I consolidate the client data to help the financial advisors scale client engagement. One of the biggest important points for financial advisors, whether you're a national firm or you're an independent firm, is basically scaling that client conversation. And when I talk about digital transformation, it's how do I capture information from the client from a new account opening perspective? How do I capture leads much easier? How do I scale IPS across all my clients to understand who's an accredited investor, who's a qualified purchaser, what does the total portfolio look like? Digital transformation has to mean something rather than just saying, okay, here's a new CRM.
Absolutely. So you kind of touched on some of the tactical components, but how do you think the technology partnership role, vendor partnership, and I prefer partnership versus vendor, partners versus vendor, how does that evolve in helping assist that advisor and client relationship? How's that going to continue to change as we look towards next 3 to 5 years?
Yeah, I think you're going to see a lot of back office solutions consider front office solutions to support financial advisors. I think that's why you see note-taking AI become more prevalent. I see that financial advisors are trying to capture all the conversations, get back to their clients faster, and basically, as you and I both know, financial advisors are dealing with a hose of inbounds. They have meetings. After the meeting, there's post-meeting work, and then there's also pre-meeting work. So I think what advisors will demand from their vendors is technology solutions that helps them become more digitally in front of their clients without losing the intimacy. And I think that's kind of the gap that vendors need to make. Vendors today are too focused on here's a technology to help you automate a follow-up, automate getting back to your clients, but do they really preserve the intimacy that actually helps win that relationship? Maybe not. And I think going forward, I think there's going to be a blend, whether it's AI, whether it's just better technology, between intimacy and scale.
So AppCrown sits in a really unique spot, working with a lot of firms of all sizes, working on the fintech side with a lot of partners. I'd like maybe name one firm, maybe two. What are some cool companies that are out there doing some really good work for advisors?
I think my response might surprise you, because I think, in my perspective, scale is a weapon. I think legacy, mature doesn't mean that you're not innovative. So I would say two names that come to mind, number one being Wilshire, old name, but I think in the world of alternatives, moving into non-traditional asset classes away from model portfolios, I think Wilshire it becomes very interesting. I think Aqualine's acquisition of SEI Archway and bringing that out as an independent for family offices and multifamily offices, I think that's a very interesting platform to keep an eye on.
Very good, like it. So we'll shift gears a little bit for the last section here, our lightning round.
Okay.
So we'll start with custody wars, if you will. More innovation, or is it just more fragmentation? We're seeing the growth of new custodians pop up and having new capabilities and being API first, et cetera.
I'm going to double down on my scale as a weapon. I think when you look at custodial competition, you're looking at Schwab, Pershing, Fidelity, but now we have Goldman Sachs Advisor Services, GSAS, and I think Goldman's bringing something really innovative between product offerings, unique distribution channels, along with great technology. And I think the custodian to really keep an eye out would be Goldman. I think the other ones out there that are, say, digital first custodians, starting de novo, whether you're an altruist or those player providers, I think you have ways to go. The wild card for me would be Robinhood. That would be the wild card custodian that if they were to organize well, that could be a very competitive force as well.
I like it. So client experience, in the next decade, do you think the families that our advisors serve are going to value performance or personalization more?
I always believe that it's an oxymoron to say personalization, because by default, the premise of wealth management is to personalize a wealth management retirement solution for you as an individual based on your risk tolerances. So I would say the future is going to be more performance driven in a very difficult macro environment where you have a very, let's say, semi-volatile rate environment. You got the rise of private credit. You got so many non-traditional asset classes coming into a traditional model portfolio. I think the future for families is to really look at holistically, what is the portfolio doing? What's the performance doing? Is it too correlated with the equity markets? I think that's going to be the focus in the future.
So what's your take on private credit? A core holding in a portfolio, or are we in a bubble state?
Private credit has always existed, whether it's traditional factoring, asset-based loaning, ABL situations. Private credit has transformed from a $3 trillion market today. I think the numbers by 2029 is $5 trillion. I think it's a rising asset class that has just room to grow.
And last question. If you could change one thing from legacy wealth management that still is pervasive or exists today, what would you change if you could change it tomorrow?
Well, that's a very profound question. My answer may not be that profound, but I'll say let's throw out model portfolios.
I'm in.
Yeah.
All right, awesome. Thank you, Franklin. That was Franklin Sung, Growth Advisor with AppCrown.
Thank you, Blake.